Ji-woo faces relentless bullying from her classmates due to her father's reputation as a gang member. Her peers ostracize her, and the homeroom teacher informs her that the school has decided to transfer her because of her father's criminal activities. Frustrated and humiliated, Ji-woo snaps and fights back against her bullies in a physical altercation. This moment marks the beginning of her pent-up rage spilling over. Unable to endure the judgment and isolation anymore, Ji-woo decides to drop out of school. She returns home emotionally broken and confronts her father over the turmoil his actions have caused in her life. In a heated argument, Ji-woo tells him that he is dead to her and orders him never to return home. This confrontation sets off a chain of events that will change Ji-woo's life forever. That evening, Dong-hoon, heartbroken by his daughter's words, decides to return home despite knowing he is being hunted by both the police and rival gangs. He wants to apologize to Ji-woo and make amends. However, he realizes he has been followed by a masked assassin. Dong-hoon stops Ji-woo from opening the door and pleads with the killer not to harm his daughter. Despite his efforts, Dong-hoon is shot multiple times in front of Ji-woo. She witnesses his murder, but is unable to hear his final words as he dies. Devastated by her father's death and enraged at the lack of justice from the police, Ji-woo seeks revenge. She visits Choi Moo-jin, Dong-hoon's close friend and the leader of Dongcheon, Korea's most powerful drug syndicate. At first reluctant, Moo-jin agrees to help Ji-woo after seeing the desperation and fire in her eyes. Moo-jin introduces Ji-woo to his gang's training gym, where she begins her journey toward becoming a fighter capable of avenging her father's death. Among sweaty and muscular recruits, Ji-woo appears out of place, a feeble girl among hardened criminals, but refuses to let them intimidate her. She starts as a housemaid, but quickly proves herself when one gang member tries to seduce her. Ji-woo fights back fiercely despite being beaten down repeatedly, earning the respect of some gang members. Moo-jin personally trains Ji-woo late into the night, teaching her tactics rather than relying on brute strength, since she will often face stronger opponents as a woman. He emphasizes using strategy and precision in combat. She undergoes grueling training sessions, punching bags, sparring with gang members, and honing her skills, all fueled by visions of the masked figure who killed her father. She faces off against Gang Jae, a cocky and aggressive gang member who underestimates her. The fight is brutal, with Ji-woo initially being slammed around by Gang Jae. However, she uses her agility and determination to turn the tables, ultimately knocking him out. The crowd cheers for her victory, but Gang Jae is humiliated and mocked for losing to a woman. This moment sets the tone for Ji-woo's unrelenting resolve to prove herself in this male-dominated world. Later that evening, Gang Jae, still bitter over his defeat, plots revenge. He drugs Ji-woo's water and orchestrates an assault with his cronies. Ji-woo quickly realizes the danger she's in and uses a shard from a broken plate to inflict pain on herself, keeping her alert despite the effects of the drug. In a fit of rage, she fights back ferociously, stabbing one attacker in the testicles and another in the stomach. Her actions leave the gang stunned and bloodied. Choi Moo-jin, the leader of Dongcheon, intervenes before things escalate further. He punishes Gang Jae by slashing his face with a knife, leaving him permanently scarred as a mark of disgrace. Moo-jin's actions reinforce his authority within the organization while signaling his protective stance toward Ji-woo. Afterward, Moo-jin has a private conversation with Ji-woo. He acknowledges her strength and determination, but warns her about the dangers of seeking vengeance. When Ji-woo insists on staying, Moo-jin decides to give her a new identity and purpose. Declaring that Yoon Ji-woo is dead, he assigns her the name Oh Hae-jin and places her undercover in the police force as part of his long-term plan to uncover her father's killer. He also reveals that Dong-hoon's murderer is a police officer and hands Ji-woo the gun used in the crime as motivation. The episode transitions into a montage showing Ji-woo undergoing rigorous training to become a police officer. She learns investigative techniques while honing her combat skills further under Moo-jin's guidance. This transformation highlights her evolution from a vengeful daughter into a calculated operative. As Oh Hae-jin, Ji-woo joins the narcotics unit and is partnered with Sergeant John Pil-do. During their first operation together, They raid a nightclub suspected of being involved in drug trafficking. The mission quickly escalates when Pil-do is kidnapped by gang members during the chaos. Ji-woo fights off multiple attackers single-handedly to rescue him, showcasing her combat prowess. Back at headquarters, Ji-woo faces criticism from her colleagues for compromising their sting operation by acting impulsively. Despite this, Pil-do begins to respect her abilities as an officer. Meanwhile, Cha Ji-ho, the head of narcotics and Ji-woo's superior, grows suspicious of her motives. In another scene, Moo-jin meets with Kang Soo-yeon, one of his trusted associates, who informs him about Yamamoto, a key figure involved in a 50 billion won drug deal that threatens Dongshin's dominance in the criminal underworld. Moo-jin orders his men to monitor Yamamoto closely while continuing to support Ji-woo's infiltration. Ji-woo interrogates Chong-gu, an arrested suspect connected to the drug trade. He reveals information about a new synthetic drug called comdey being distributed by a dealer named Mango. During the questioning, Ji-woo finds Mango's hidden drug stash nearby, proving her usefulness to the team. Pil-do starts to see her value as a capable officer, though he remains wary of her intentions. Meanwhile, Choi Moo-jin's drug empire faces mounting threats. A new competitor has emerged, Duke Gang-jae, a former Dongshin recruit who was expelled after his assault on Ji-woo. Now leading his own criminal enterprise, Gang-jae is determined to destroy Moo-jin's organization and exact revenge for his humiliation. At the same time, the police intensify their efforts to dismantle Dongshin's operations, putting Ji-woo in a precarious position as she tries to maintain her cover while feeding information back to Moo-jin. The narcotics unit launches a raid on one of Moo-jin's drug shipments aboard a ship. Ji-woo is unable to warn Moo-jin in time, but sabotages the raid by firing a shot with the police revolver used to kill her father. This creates a distraction that allows Moo-jin and his men to escape. She plants the gun at the scene, ensuring it is taken in as evidenced by Captain Cha. The scratched-off serial number on the gun catches Cha's attention, raising questions about its origin. Back at Dongshin headquarters, Moo-jin's second-in-command, Yoon Tae-ju, grows suspicious of Ji-woo's loyalty due to her inability to warn them about the raid. However, Moo-jin continues to trust Ji-woo and dismisses Tae-ju's concerns. Moo-jin suspects there is a mole within Dongshin leaking information to Captain Cha and orders an investigation. Ji-woo learns that Moo-jin is the narcotics unit's primary target, and that Captain Cha has a personal vendetta against him for killing a teammate years ago. This revelation complicates Ji-woo's mission further, as she grapples with her loyalty to Moo-jin and her desire for revenge against the police officer who killed her father. Gang-jae escalates his attacks on Moo-jin by targeting Dongshin's gym on the docks where Ji-woo trained. He and his men brutally assault Dongshin members using swords and bats, leaving many injured and killing others. Tae-ju is seriously wounded during the attack. By the time Ji-woo arrives at the scene with Pil-do, Gang-jae has already fled, leaving behind chaos and destruction. Gang-jae sends an ominous message declaring war on Moo-jin and promising more bloodshed. This development pushes both Dongshin and the narcotics unit into action as they prepare for an inevitable confrontation with Gang-jae. Meanwhile, Ji-woo is caught between warring factions: Dongshin, led by Moo-jin, Gang-jae's criminal enterprise, and the police force under Captain Cha Ji-ho. Her loyalty is tested as she navigates these dangerous alliances while pursuing her ultimate goal of avenging her father's death. Choi Moo-jin watches footage of the massacre at Dongshin's gym, orchestrated by Duke Gang-jae and his gang. Moo-jin is deeply concerned about the state of his empire and orders his subordinates to ensure no one speaks to the police or leaks information about the attack. Meanwhile, Yoon Ji-woo is fronting the task force investigating the incident. Despite her efforts, the department hits a dead end as none of the gang members are willing to cooperate. Detective John Pil-do encourages Ji-woo to keep searching for answers, but is called away by Captain Cha Ji-ho. Pil-do joins Cha at a memorial where Moo-jin and his men are mourning their fallen comrades. Cha confronts Moo-jin directly, trading verbal blows with him. Moo-jin vows that Cha will never catch him or take him down, asserting his dominance even in the face of police scrutiny. Back at the department, Ji-woo anxiously waits for the forensic report on the gun she planted at the scene of the raid. The investigation leads to Gangjae as a suspect responsible for the attack on Dongchin. Captain Cha sees this as an opportunity to bait Mu-jin into making a move against Gangjae, knowing that Mu-jin's pride won't allow him to let Gangjae go unchecked. Despite Ji-woo's objections that this plan will lead to more deaths, Cha decides to release Mango, a drug dealer connected to Gangjae's operation. Ji-woo secretly messages Mu-jin, warning him about Cha's trap. However, Cha grows suspicious of Ji-woo's loyalty and suspects that she may be leaking information to Dongchin. He instructs Pil-do to investigate Ji-woo's police file, while continuing to monitor her actions closely. Ji-woo tells Captain Cha to uncover who he is meeting and discovers Tae-ju, Mu-jin's trusted lieutenant, acting as a decoy for Cha's operation. Ji-woo reports this back to Mu-jin while evading Pil-do, who catches her during her surveillance and questions her motives. Pil-do later confronts Ji-woo about her solo investigations into Mango and Gangjae, but decides to join her when they receive intel about Gangjae's next move. Ji-woo and Pil-do follow Mango to a factory where Gangjae is conducting a drug operation. They climb over a wall and infiltrate the building, observing Mango receiving a bag from Gangjae. However, their surveillance turns out to be a setup orchestrated by Gangjae himself. He has been tracking Ji-woo after seeing CCTV footage of her disrupting Mango's previous operation and recognizes her true identity. Gangjae ambushes Ji-woo and Pil-do with his men. A violent fight ensues as they attempt to fend off the attackers. Pil-do is thrown out of a window during the chaos and loses consciousness. Ji-woo is captured by Gangjae's men, who destroy their phones to prevent them from calling for backup. At the same time, Mu-jin arrives at another location where he confronts Gangjae's thugs in an intense battle. Despite being blindsided by armed guards, Mu-jin holds his own and interrogates one of Gangjae's associates about his whereabouts. Ji-woo is trapped in Gangjae's clutches while Mu-jin continues his pursuit of revenge against Gangjae for attacking Dongchin. Ji-woo is tortured brutally by Gangjae, who stabs her in the leg to inflict pain and weaken her resolve. Gangjae's ultimate goal is to draw out Choi Mu-jin, knowing that Mu-jin will retaliate for Ji-woo's suffering. Pil-do, who is tied up alongside Ji-woo, watches helplessly as she endures the abuse. Gangjae taunts Ji-woo about her loyalty to Mu-jin, claiming that Mu-jin is only using her for his own gain. Despite the physical and emotional torment, Ji-woo refuses to betray Mu-jin or reveal any information. Her resilience impresses Gangjae, but he remains determined to use her as bait to lure Mu-jin into a trap. Meanwhile, Choi Mu-jin and Young Tae-ju intensify their efforts to locate Gangjae. Tae-ju interrogates Cheol-ho, one of Gangjae's associates, using brutal methods to extract information. At the same time, Captain Cha Ji-ho authorizes the narcotics unit to carry firearms as they prepare for a confrontation with Gangjae's gang. The tension escalates as both sides race to find Gangjae first. Ji-woo remains caught in the middle of these escalating conflicts. Her loyalty to Mu-jin is unwavering, but her growing bond with Pil-do complicates matters. Pil-do begins to open up about his past, revealing that he lost his sister due to drug-related violence. This revelation makes him a more sympathetic figure and deepens the emotional connection between him and Ji-woo. Captain Cha continues to suspect Ji-woo's motives and has her phone bugged to monitor her activities. This creates additional pressure for Ji-woo as she struggles to maintain her cover while navigating the dangerous dynamics between Mu-jin, Gangjae, and the narcotics unit. Mu-jin advises Ji-woo to leave the country temporarily for her safety, but she refuses, determined to stay and complete her mission of revenge. Her resolve impresses Mu-jin, but also raises concerns about whether she can handle the mounting risks. Eventually, Mu-jin locates Gangjae's hideout and launches an attack with his men. The confrontation is violent and chaotic, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. During the chaos, Ji-woo manages to free herself and Pil-do. She fights off several attackers despite her injured leg, showcasing her incredible determination and combat skills. As the battle unfolds, Pil-do retrieves incriminating phone call records that link Gangjae's operations to high-ranking officials within the police force. This evidence could expose widespread corruption, but also puts Pil-do in danger as he becomes a target for those trying to protect their secrets. Meanwhile, Ji-woo is grappling with the fallout of her actions, where she unlawfully executed Do Gang-jae in front of John Pil-do. Pil-do, while shocked, chooses to reserve judgment on Ji-woo, sensing there is more to her story. He provides a listening ear as Ji-woo shares parts of her backstory, hinting at the deep emotional scars that drive her quest for vengeance. Meanwhile, Choi Moo-jin, who is severely injured after his confrontation with Gang-jae's gang, is spirited away by Tae-ju to a secluded mountain temple. While Moo-jin recovers, Tae-ju takes charge of Dongshin's operations and begins implementing measures to protect the organization from further attacks. Ji-woo receives a mysterious photo in the mail that shakes her belief system and casts doubt on everything she thought she knew about her father's death. The photo shows a group of policemen outside the precinct, with one officer clearly identified as her father, Yoon Dong-hoon. However, his name tag reads Song Jun-soo, suggesting he was undercover within the narcotics unit before his death. This revelation complicates Ji-woo's understanding of her father's relationship with Moo-jin and the police. Moo-jin confirms the details of the photo to Ji-woo, revealing that Dong-hoon saved his life and joined Dongshin as an undercover operative within the police force. However, Moo-jin claims that Captain Cha Ji-ho betrayed Dong-hoon and orchestrated his murder. Ji-woo is inclined to believe Moo-jin due to their shared history, but doubts begin to creep in as she pieces together conflicting information. Ji-woo continues working with Pil-do on their investigation into Gang-jae's drug ring. Pil-do obtains incriminating phone call records that reveal connections between Gang-jae's operations and corrupt officials within the police force. This evidence shifts the narcotics unit's focus onto internal corruption while deepening Pil-do's suspicions about Ji-woo's motives. Moo-jin orders Tae-ju to kill Captain Cha Ji-ho, believing him to be a threat to Dongshin and Ji-woo's mission. Ji-woo arrives at Cha's location just before Tae-ju can execute him. She finds Cha gravely injured but alive enough to pass her critical information about Dong-hoon's true allegiance. Cha reveals that Dong-hoon was never loyal to Dongshin. He was an undercover cop trying to dismantle Moo-jin's empire from within. Moo-jin discovered this betrayal after finding a tracker hidden in a lighter belonging to Dong-hoon, a motive for murder in criminal circles. This revelation shatters Ji-woo's trust in Moo-jin and exposes his manipulation of her grief for his own gain. Realizing she has been used as a pawn in Moo-jin's schemes, Ji-woo makes a symbolic gesture by burning the mark of Dongshin on her chest, a literal purging of her loyalty to the organization. Ji-woo firmly decides to turn against Moo-jin as she prepares for revenge against him. Her transformation is complete. She now sees Moo-jin as the true villain responsible for her father's death and vows to bring him down at any cost. Captain Cha Ji-ho survives surgery after being stabbed by young Tae-ju, but he remains unconscious in the hospital. Ji-woo is shaken by the revelation from Ji-ho into that Moo-jin killed her father, Yoon Dong-hoon, upon discovering his duplicity as an undercover cop. This truth shatters Ji-woo's trust in Moo-jin completely and solidifies her resolve to take revenge against him. Meanwhile, Tae-ju, acting independently of Moo-jin, tracks Ji-woo down and ambushes her. In a brutal confrontation, Ji-woo fights back with all her strength and ultimately kills Tae-ju. Before dying, Tae-ju confirms that Moo-jin personally murdered Dong-hoon. This confirmation further fuels Ji-woo's hatred for Moo-jin and her determination to end him. Moo-jin, aware that Ji-woo now knows the truth about her father's death, decides to test her loyalty one last time. He voluntarily surrenders himself to the police, claiming that he wants to cooperate with their investigation. Ji-woo sees through his manipulation and realizes that Moo-jin's surrender is a ploy to gauge whether she will protect him or betray him. At the police station, Ji-woo steals critical evidence linking Moo-jin to his crimes, exposing herself as the mole within the narcotics unit. Her actions cause chaos within the department as the team scrambles to understand her motivations. Despite being cornered, Ji-woo manages to escape custody and ensures that Moo-jin is released from police custody. Her decision to free him is driven by her desire to confront him directly and kill him herself. Moo-jin returns to Dongshin headquarters and prepares for his final confrontation with Ji-woo. He acknowledges that she has chosen vengeance over loyalty and begins fortifying his defenses for the inevitable showdown. Back at the narcotics unit, Pil-do discovers evidence linking Ji-woo to Moo-jin and the attack on Captain Cha Ji-ho. Acting on a hunch, Pil-do tracks Ji-woo down at a cemetery where she visits her parents' ashes. Pil-do confronts her about her true identity and arrests her on the spot. Ji-woo in police custody is torn between her growing bond with Pil-do and her unrelenting need for revenge against Moo-jin. The tension builds as both sides prepare for the climactic confrontation. Ji-woo and Pil-do are on the run, having escaped both the police and Moo-jin's gang. Pil-do has learned the truth about Ji-woo's double life, and, despite the betrayal, chooses to trust her. He handcuffs himself to Ji-woo to keep her close and safe as they evade Moo-jin's men. Seeking a moment of peace, the two hide out in a secluded beach house. There, Ji-woo finally lets her guard down, and she and Pil-do share an intimate night together, solidifying their bond and mutual feelings. The next morning, Ji-woo decides it's time to face the consequences of her actions. She tells Pil-do she will turn herself in and testify against Choi Moo-jin to bring him to justice. Pil-do promises to support her no matter what happens, assuring her that he will stay by her side even if the world condemns her. As they drive toward the police station, they stop at a red light just outside. Pil-do reassures Ji-woo, but tragedy strikes. Moo-jin, riding a motorcycle, pulls up alongside their car and shoots Pil-do in the head at point-blank range. Pil-do dies instantly in Ji-woo's arms, leaving her devastated and fueling her rage for revenge. Broken and consumed by grief, Ji-woo arms herself with a gun and a knife and heads straight to Moo-jin's stronghold, the Lee Bear Hotel. She storms the building, taking down Moo-jin's guards in a violent and bloody rampage, using both her gun and her knife to cut through anyone in her way. She rides the elevator to Moo-jin's office, where he is waiting for her, prepared for a final confrontation. Inside the office, Moo-jin and Ji-woo engage in a brutal knife fight. Both are wounded multiple times, blood soaking the room. Moo-jin taunts Ji-woo, telling her that her father, Dong-hoon, hesitated at a crucial moment and that she is just like him. Ji-woo, however, declares that Moo-jin has taken everything from her and that she would rather become a monster than let him live. As the fight reaches its climax, Moo-jin grabs Ji-woo's gun, but it is empty. Ji-woo seizes the moment, stabbing Moo-jin in the chest and neck, finally killing him and ending her quest for vengeance. Exhausted and injured, Ji-woo escapes the hotel before the police arrive. The series closes with Ji-woo visiting the graves of her parents and Pil-do. She pays her respects, finally free from the cycle of revenge and violence that has consumed her life. She walks away from the cemetery, leaving her past behind and stepping into an uncertain but self-determined future.